What's going on, everyone? It is 7:34. I'm Brian Ponder, Brian the Credit Lawyer. And as I promised, I'm going to take some Q&A and discuss some issues surrounding student loans, specifically student loans and credit, um, credit repair, also rehabilitation of student loans and how it can affect you. Very, very hot topic right now, given that a lot of people are filing for tax returns, and a lot of people are going to be subject to not getting their tax returns due to student loan defaults and things of that nature. So, by the way, just for those that are interested in tangible information, I do have a package that I put together. It's called a student loan deletion package. You can go to the description and grab a copy of that. It basically has the letters that I've used over the years to delete student loans, and also in the event that it's not deleted, a small claims action complaint completely formatted for you that you could use to get student loans deleted. So this topic, first of all, anyone that's here, let me know if you can hear me okay. I always want to be sure that the volume is good, that there's no interference, things like that, because I can't hear what you hear, but I'm going to assume everything is audible unless I hear otherwise. So most of you that follow me on YouTube know that I'm very plain and to the point. I try not to get too technical. So if I mention something that you're not aware of, just let me know and I'll break it down a little bit more. But and I'll be looking, let me see, I'll be looking for any messages that come up. So just go ahead and comment away if you have any questions. So this whole student loan credit repair default process, I just want to sort of provide some clarity to it. Student loans are in a class by themselves when it comes to debts in general. Most student loans can be divided into two types: private and or government guaranteed student loans. Okay, what's the difference? Well, private student loans are ones that are just involving private lenders and without any government guarantee. Government guaranteed student loans are ones that are guaranteed by the government. They may be, the originator, the creditor may be a private entity, but these loans are guaranteed by the government. All right, so there's a big difference between those two. The big difference is private student loans, which sometimes you see people get these in higher level education or sometimes even lower undergrad level education. Those student loans, are just based on credit. They're not government guaranteed. The government guaranteed student loans are those, typically you see this popular with, undergrad debt, even graduate debt. The government guarantees these student loans and lenders loan the money, confident that if the loan is not paid, then the government will step in and pay on that loan. Now, that being said, let's talk about how government guaranteed student loans operate. Well, after you graduate and finish school, well, while you're in school, you don't have to pay, but after you graduate, the repayment process begins after a certain time period. Those loans are typically serviced by one of the many, servicers out there. Navient, used to be Nelnet, Great Lakes. There's an assortment of student loan servicers. Now, it's very important those that are graduating provide proper address information to their financial aid department, update their records, because the most common thing is the repayment process starting without the former student being fully aware that that's going to happen. And what happens is, as soon as they get into the repayment phase, there's a default. A default is when a payment is missed. Truly, after 30 days, that's technically a default. However, a late student loan is not always considered quote unquote a default. That would be a late student loan. The default takes place when usually there are multiple missed payments, and then that servicer can call that loan in default. And at that point, that servicer can write a letter and start initiating certain collection processes. Now, with these government guaranteed student loans, this collection process is much more severe. The law, because it's a government guaranteed student loan, the law provides that these government guaranteed student loan servicers can initiate garnishment proceedings on defaulted consumers. What does that look like? Well, first, again, you will have a missed payment. After a number of missed payments, that lender can deem that loan to be in default, and they could start seeking to have collection and garnishment proceedings. What they are required to do is to send a hearing letter request to the consumer, where at that point the consumer has the option of making arrangements to get the loan out of default, or requesting a hearing to give reasons why they should not be garnished with respect to their defaulted student loan. Now, if the consumer gets this hearing request, they have to complete their option, whatever it may be. It could be, getting caught up, making special arrangements, or you could request a telephonic hearing where you can dispute, what they're requesting. You can dispute being in default, whatever the case may be, you can have a hearing. Typically that hearing is done by phone. It's typically done with a collection agency that's a third party. So it seems like you're dealing, when you think of a hearing, you think you're dealing with the court or some mediator or arbitrator, but typically it's another debt collection company that's serving as the hearing officer. Is really not the type of hearing you want to participate in, for the fact that the people hearing it, they're debt collectors too. So it's very interesting. But that's your option. You have the option of proving that case or disputing that you should not be garnished. Typically, those hearings go where the student loan servicer wins and is able to garnish and things like that. So if you ever get to that stage of default, you don't want to have a hearing. You want to either work that loan out by reinstating it and getting them good terms. But my advice is when you're in default, even if you make a late payment, either or, I recommend that people enter into student loan rehabilitation. Student loan rehabilitation is an option where you contact, if you're late or if you defaulted, you can contact the servicer and rehabilitate that loan. And what that means is you will discuss with them a payment arrangement where you can start back making payments. It can be as little as $10, $20, $30, $40, $50 a month for a certain period of time, and then that loan will be deemed rehabilitated, and it will be picked up and serviced either by that servicer or another servicer in good standing. And they will, after that 6 or 9 months, wherever your agreement is, they will delete all the late payments. Now, keep in mind, for those of you that just didn't keep track of your your loan information, when I say didn't keep track, you didn't really update your address information, you didn't keep track of the mail coming in, and so you didn't catch the mail to know you're supposed to start repaying. Those of you that do that, there's another option too that I recommend. You can request like a forbearance or deferment, and what you can do is, if you contact that servicer, get that deferment to begin before your payments were missed, okay? And what that will do is that will reach back and cure those missed payments that were missed, so that it looks like they never happened. So you don't have to go through the rehabilitation process. You can just straight up make that arrangements and retroactively cure those late payments and get back on track with your payments. Now, if the payments are high, some people are shocked about how high the payments can be. Well, you can apply for income-based or some type of variance from the particular payment amount for whatever hardship or reason you may have, low income, things like that. Or you can just take a deferment that will begin retroactively and continue at present, so that you don't have any payments. So if you're not working, if you're back in school, or you just want a deferment for financial hardship reasons, you can do that. But be sure to let it start before your payments are missed, so that your credit report can be improved by way of that arrangement. So whatever arrangement you make, the goal is for it to look positive on your credit history, okay? So those are the two methods: rehabilitation, deferment, forbearance method, which is the second method that goes retroactively. Those are the two methods that I recommend when dealing with late student loans, defaulted student loans, due to the hearing. Now, some of you may have already, as a third resolution, you may have already missed that hearing, your default. You have notice from the IRS that, or whoever, that your refund is going to be withheld because you have an outstanding garnishment for student loan default. That can happen, okay? They don't have to take you to court with these government guaranteed student loans, so it's very important to understand that. For those that are in this position, you still have the first two options that I mentioned, perhaps, where you may be able to get a deferment. If you're not able to get a deferment, you may be able to enter into a rehabilitation program. Either way, whether you get into a deferment or forbearance to get out of collection, or you enter into a rehab program to get out of collection, the goal is to get out of collection. Once you get out of the collection status and enter into some agreement with the student loan servicer and get out of the collection status, then that garnishment can be released and you can get your tax return, and all those other things that are affected will stop. So those are the three options regarding the collection of these student loans. Okay, so that's separate. This sort of addresses credit in the long-term sense, but I must speak about that because you see a lot of people post, they deleted their student loans, but that means nothing with respect to collection. Those student loans can still be in default. Not only can still, if they are in default, they are still in default. Just because they're deleted from the credit report does not mean that you're no longer in collection or default status. So very important to understand that concept. For those of you that provide credit repair services to your clients, it's very, very important that you reiterate this information to them, so that they understand that the credit repair process does not make them immune to these collection issues with these student loans, because the student loans, they live on, and they live on even stronger than debt collections, because garnishment can result without having to go to court. Okay, so now that you know this, be sure to communicate that, understand it for yourself. If you work with others, whether you're an attorney or a credit repair organization, you have to let people know about this, so that they are well informed and don't have a false sense of security just because their student loans are deleted off their credit report. Okay, And so I saw some people that were scared to deal with these issues because they just really didn't have the knowledge. So hopefully this helps you understand that, these things, student loans specifically, can be addressed. It's just that they are special in the sense that it can get real bad for a consumer or you if they're not addressed head on. So you can't just address it at the consumer reporting agency level. Now, that's the collection side. So now you know how to deal with the student loans at that level. At the same time, simultaneously, you can deal with the student loans at the consumer reporting agency level, CRA level. What I mean by that? Well, ultimately, student loans are usually a very big debt. And many times, people that are trying to improve their credit, they may not have addressed those loans yet. So it's a huge debt. And if you're trying to buy a house or get credit, it can really put a hamper, so to speak, on your debt to income ratio, your overall debt, and it can really pull your score down. So a lot of people opt to try to just delete those from the credit report, which is fine. There's absolutely, again, y'all must understand, the law does not require things to be on a credit report. The only thing the law requires is for things to come off after a certain time period. So keep that in mind. Understand the law does not force your debt or your life history and things to be reported. The law actually prohibits reporting after a certain period of time. Okay, so understand that, because a lot of people feel very weary about deleting things from their credit report that are in fact historical. What I mean by historical is, yeah, you did get a student loan for $50,000. Okay, that's not the point. The point is those things can be deleted, and there's no requirement that they be reported. It's just the law provides they can't be reported after a certain period of time. So understand that, get your mind, get your mental position correct so that you can, confidently deal with these issues. Now, I told you why you want to delete a student loan, because of the huge debt. If it's defaulted, it's a bad item. You don't want anything negative on your credit report. So for all those reasons, you may want to delete it. How do you delete it? Well, just like anything else, you look at the trade line very, very carefully and under great scrutiny, and look for anything that's inaccurate or incomplete. Those are the two things you need to look for, okay? A lot of people say unverifiable. No, it's inaccurate or incomplete. And what's inaccurate? Well, if the balance is wrong, that's inaccurate. If the creditor or servicer is not listed fully, well, that can be incomplete. If it doesn't list your payment history each month and has some blanks, that's incomplete. If it says you were late 90 days, you were paying good this month, that month, the next month, then 90 days this month, that's inaccurate. You can't be 90 days in 1 month. So you look at everything. If it does not have the high balance, that's incomplete. If the balance, say if it's paid off and transferred and it has a dash and no zero, well, that's incomplete. So if you if you have a copy of my book, 4 Steps to Better Credit, it sort of talks to you about how to look for incomplete and accurate stuff. You can get that on Amazon. But yeah, so in my package, you'll have some examples of how to pull out some of these inaccurate, incomplete things that you may not think about off the top of your head. But all of those things, any one of them, can be grounds to delete that student loan. Okay. And so what you want to do, you want to find those things, and you will have some. Trust me, most of the time, virtually all of the time, you will have something incomplete or inaccurate reported about that student loan. Take advantage of that, okay? Take advantage of that, request that the whole thing be deleted, all right? Just because something is incomplete or inaccurate doesn't mean that the CRA has to modify it. A lot of people make the mistake of telling them what it should be, and that gives them the opportunity on your own word to correct it and not delete it. So once you identify something as inaccurate or incomplete, no need to try to correct a CRA. Just go ahead and instruct them to delete that. They're likely not going to get the correct information So you go ahead and just guide them. Tell them what you want. Don't tell them. Don't be circular or don't be evasive in what you want. If they're specify what's inaccurate and incomplete. Tell them what it is and why it is. You don't have to tell them what would make it accurate. You don't have to tell them what would make it complete. You just identify that it is inaccurate and incomplete, and you can command and demand them to delete that trade line item. All of this, I have a template for that. You can download the template, follow my lead, fill in as necessary depending on your circumstance, and go ahead and get that deletion. No one can guarantee that it's going to be deleted. That's not the point, but these are the steps you have to take in order to get it to be deleted. If you do nothing, nothing will happen. If you do this, something may happen. So that's the process. If it's obviously deleted by the CRA, then great. That credit issue is resolved. If it's not, no need to repeat that step. This particular template and guide is designed for you to get that result. If you don't get that result, then you can jump right to either consulting with an attorney or doing a pro se small claims lawsuit, which I include here for you. All right. So that's the steps. I mean, with this last step of litigation, you basically, stand behind your letter. Your letter, would be drafted correctly if you follow through as recommended, and just stand behind your guns. You may get to court and they ask you, well, did you have a student loan? Well, that's not the point. The point is not whether you had a student loan or not. The point is the things identified are inaccurate or incomplete. Well, what would be accurate? That's not your job. That's not my job. You don't, it's not your job to instruct the CRAs on how to fix what they're doing wrong. It's your job to identify it and to enforce it using the laws in your favor. Okay, so don't feel like you have to correct their information. The fact is that it's wrong. You advise them that it was wrong. They should have fixed it by deleting the information. Okay, because they can't fix it by updating it, modifying it, because they don't know what the correct information is. So they should have deleted it. And that's what you want. Ultimately, you want to try to settle these things with a deletion, collect as much of the statutory $1,000 fine as you can. Understand it's not really about the money, but you are due costs and attorney's fees only if you use an attorney. If you pro se, you're entitled to costs up to $1,000 per violation with respect to the FCRA. So you get what you can, but understand the real goal is correcting this credit report. You may try to sue for the maximum amount in the small claims court, but don't expect to get the maximum in settlement. Really, the settlement, you should get something. Don't walk out of there empty-handed, for your time and effort and the damages that's been caused. But understand, you're not trying to get a windfall by way of correcting these things. All right. Listen, any questions so far? Go ahead and type them in. I'll address them as we wrap up here. So yeah, we've talked about how to deal with the collection side of the student loans and the credit reporting side. On the credit reporting side, these student loans are negative. You want to delete it. Even positive student loans. When I say positive student loans, say if you borrowed, $80,000 in student loans, your payments have not been late, but that's a lot of debt that will affect your debt income ratio with respect to, mortgage finance and things like that. Even if your student loan is reporting positive, if you find some inaccurate or incomplete information in there, you can still delete it. A lot of people don't understand that you can delete positive things because it could lower your debt. So, and again, just a reminder, the law does not require everything under the sun that you've experienced in the last 7 years to be in your credit report. The law just says that after a certain period of time, it cannot be. Okay. So once you understand that concept and how the law works, you can feel ethical about, what you're doing. It's totally correct and fine to delete things that do not help your credit. So, any questions so far? We don't have any questions. All right. All right. So good. So that's that is the formula to dealing with these student loans. If y'all don't have any specific questions, I'm going to wrap up. I'm going to wrap up by talking about the private student loans. So private student loans are basically treated like regular debts. There is no abbreviated process to get to garnishment. Those would have to be litigated. You have to lose and get a judgment against you in order for those to subject you to any garnishment proceedings and things of that nature. Yes, so I will let this replay. This will be on YouTube as well, so you'll be able to go back and listen to all of this. All right, so that's the formula, you all. Be sure to do a couple things. This particular package that addresses the student loan issue, it's on sale right now until for a limited time for $42. It's typically a $100 package. So go ahead and grab that, as it is on a limited time special. So if you're seeing this in the future, this thing may be $100. So if you're watching now, go ahead and just grab that. It will be very insightful. It'll save you a lot of time and money and putting all this together. Let's see. I also have a link, or will add a link. This particular package is do-it-yourself, so it doesn't come with, a Pick My Brain session. However, those of you that need to pick my brain and consult with me, I will post a link where you can schedule a phone call, where you would schedule it by appointment only. And look forward to hearing about you all, in the comment section. Tell me how these things are resolving in your favor, okay? All right. Thank you all for listening. Hope you all have a great day.